I'm Coach mjdtiger, certified mentor and life coach. Let's begin. Salute to you all. The brave never fall. Salute brave men. I was talking to a good friend of mine and kind of a mentor. I don't know if it's a full mentor, but a lot of good advice coming in. And we were talking about the subject of clarity and what peace of mind actually is. And I always try to balance everything out with peace of mind goes along with peace of body. Peace of body goes along with peace of heart. Peace of heart goes along with peace of spirit, and who we have in our lives and who's around us and what things we're doing, what places we're at. All these things combine to equal peace and ultimately clarity. And that clarity is important because you get to see exactly who you are, real time, no filters, who you are. And then we got into how can clarity be blocked? How can clarity be clouded? How can clarity get lost? And we continued to talk, and this conversation unfolded, and I remember we're giving each other advice and going back and forth. And I remember at some point saying we have to filter out our own bullshit. And in life, we always know, all of us do this, where we have things in our lives and we kind of forget things. And I always call it the room with all the boxes in it that you haven't unpacked yet, but you have already dug them up. Like you've unearthed them, and now you've placed them inside of a room with a door shut, and you said, I'll come back to these boxes later because these other boxes are more pressing. I talked about this in the first 50 or so episodes of the podcast, of the Brave Never Fall podcast in phase 1, about the boxes that you find these boxes, you look in them if you want, and you say, okay, I can deal with that later. And then you go to the more focal point boxes and you focus on those and you get them together. You know, you get the boxes together and you say, okay, I'm going to, these 3, these 5, or just this one, I'm going to figure this out. And when you do that, you end up having a focal point that works. And the good thing about that is that, again, you can always go back to those other boxes. So when you go back to these other boxes, what happened there? You look inside, you say, okay, I'm going to work on these. But then there's the other boxes that you haven't even unearthed yet. And this is what I was talking to my friend about. The boxes that you haven't unearthed yet are twofold. There's the boxes where you're digging, trying to find more boxes, and you unintentionally find one. And then there's the boxes that you know are buried out there because you already buried them. Maybe you took them from one of the rooms and you went out and you buried them in the ground and covered them up and said, I don't even want to see you. I don't even want you in this room. I want you to go away. But the problem is that you know that that box is still out there buried. So you have to intentionally get in the mindset of going out and unearthing this box, bringing it back in, putting it back in the room. But this time, not the room where you say I'm going to come back to it. This time you're going to put it in the room where it's a focal point. And this is how we got to what I always call unboxing your own BS. And we all know what BS stands for. Bullshit. I've had this whole thing in the last few weeks of clarity. How can I get clarity, and what prevents me from being as clear as possible? And I found a room with a box in it that I had overlooked. I had taken it back out and put it in the ground. I had to go back out, dig it up, bring it in, and now it's a focal point. And I was talking to my friend about this. I'm like, this is exactly what I was talking about unboxing the bullshit and focusing on it. And for me, it was something that I've changed in my life. And it's a thing. Like there's places that we change, there's people that come and go from our lives, and then there's things that we have that we find very important that make up our identity, and it's not a huge deal. And we all have one. Multiple ones, and most of us do, but we always have the one that, again, needs to be that focal point. And I have jettisoned something from my life that I've already done before. Again, I've done this before, and I'm being very vague because in the future, I'm going to link this video with this future video where I'm going to target just this thing that I jettisoned from my life And I've done it before, so I already know what it feels like, but this time it's permanent. And this thing, for me, symbolizes so many different things. And I'll just say, everybody has that thing. So substitute your thing. That didn't sound right. Substitute your issues where I'm talking about here. And again, in the future, I will elaborate more on the specific thing that I jettisoned that is already helped me a lot in the last couple of weeks, and I'm sure going forward. And it was something that my father dealt with, and my son was affected, and me as his son was affected by it. And I started thinking about my son. I'm like, it's almost the same thing, not quite, but it's messing with my clarity. So let's try to not do it. And it worked. And again, I've done it before. I was just reminded, again, those boxes, they remind us of our own bullshit. What was in that box was bullshit. I had to get it out. And at this point, what I'm talking about is it really doesn't matter, because you can insert any type of bullshit into these boxes. It's really about what are we willing to change? And not just as men, as people in general, but I'm focusing on men because we can be stubborn sometimes when it comes to change and things that we need to make a focal point to make our lives happier and bring us peace. It's a funny thing how that works. Being able to reach out within yourself, from yourself, reach out and expand upon who you are, you need clarity to do that. And I know this thing that I got rid of, I purposely did it to numb myself. And the voices and the pressure within myself that I put on myself throughout the day, I'd be exhausted. And this is a way to just breathe. And it didn't do me any favors. It didn't do anyone else any favors because I wasn't in true clarity, if that makes sense. There was something always blocking it. So it's about recognizing it and changing for yourself, not for other people. And when you can get to that point, the bullshit within you starts to become very apparent. And that's when I realized, and again, I was talking to my friend about this, clarity overrides bullshit. Because you can see the bullshit in high definition when you have clarity and you're taking ownership and accountability for who and what you are and what you represent. And what are your goals in life, how you want to live your life. And I've had opportunities where certain things have to be moved around and pieced together differently because these are really good opportunities. And these can be people, places, and things. We all have these opportunities, but how do we know if we're not clear-minded enough? How do we know we can take on these responsibilities and these new opportunities and these great chances that we have to be grateful for if we're clouding our minds with bullshit because we're afraid, we're in a fearful state, or we're in denial, and we're making excuses about what's actually in those boxes? And worse yet, the boxes that we intentionally took out in the backyard, dug a hole and put it in there and said, I don't want anything to do with what's in that box. There's nothing wrong for any man to say that they're afraid of something. We're all afraid of something. There's always something tapping us on the shoulder that we don't really want to turn around and face. But just as I was saying earlier, this box that I have, I want to face it now. I have some other things that I took care of that were focal points, and now I have room right now for this thing to be a focal point, and it's going to change me for the better. And that's what it's about. It wasn't time yet. Now it's time. And again, you'll know because you have that trust in yourself to know that it's time. It's time to open that box and face what's in there head on. And that takes courage. That's you being a hero to your own internal villain. And that's you jettisoning something from your own self that will benefit not only you, but the ones around you that you are obligated to care for, and add peace and happiness to those around you that you care for, and allow people into your life that you never thought would come into your life because you change one little thing, or you're focusing on one little thing. That is the beauty of life. Me as a Buddhist, someone who follows Tao, clarity is one of the highest achievements that we go through. And one of the things I love about the journey of following Tao is that you do level up, you ascend. Clarity will come when it comes. And once you reach it, you jettison what doesn't serve it. And you do it for yourself. You don't do it for other people. It doesn't serve you to serve others through a decision you're making for yourself that will benefit you. The good thing about it is that we are aware of what the bullshit is. We just ignore it. There's a lot of people out there and a lot of men out there who constructive criticism is almost like an attack. They can't take it. They won't listen to it. And that's pretty natural for anybody, not just men, but again, we can be extra stubborn about it because that's just, that's just who we are. We like to be good at everything that we do, but we bullshit ourselves in believing that we're good at everything that we do, that we're the best at everything we do. We'll pump ourselves up, especially those who call themselves alpha males. It is what it is. If you're an alpha male, and I don't think I have to walk around saying I'm an alpha male. I think I prove through my actions whatever type of male that someone sees me as, and quite frankly, that's their problem, how they see me. I know I give my all every single day at everything that I do. And in order for me to continue to do that, I have to get rid of my bullshit, my excuses. I can't get mad at the world because this particular thing went out on me today. Like, my car won't start, or, I'm late for work, or my friend isn't returning my call, whatever it is. We can't get upset about it. We have to keep moving forward, put a smile on our face, and know that we have something to contribute that day, no matter what happens. I always say start the day off with a small victory. And starting the day off with a small victory is just something that gets you rolling. And again, with me and what I unearthed for me, numbing myself to some of the victories I was getting, I was still doing the same things, but I wasn't appreciating myself as much through them because I was giving a little bit too much of myself to other people, places, and things. That is what was the whole foundation of numbing, so I could come back and say, okay, you are still doing this for you as well. You have to remember that. And the only way I could do that, I had to numb myself with this vice that I had. And I realized, I had it backwards. I was working my way out in instead of working my way in out. And the only way to do it is to face it. So I got the box out and I face it. Digging up the box of bullshit is extremely important. It will keep you accountable. It will keep you focused. It'll give you laser beam. Just the last few weeks, I'm going to say the last 2.5, 3 weeks, really even before that, I've been coming to terms with this and trying to figure out what is going on here. And I went into a little bit of a dark period because I couldn't figure out what it was. And I ended up reaching out to some people and that I knew and went through similar things. And we all came to the same conclusion. Like, yeah, that's kind of what it felt like to come out of this, what we call the BS stage. And you're like, oh, so you went through this too. It's a little bit of a dark period. Things just don't seem right, but you're still doing what you're supposed to be doing. It's just something is not right. And we understood that once you face this thing, something good comes in. Some person, some place, something, some turn of luck happens. And ever since I've been doing this, every day something new has happened that I'm just like, where did that come from? How did that happen? Why am I not reacting to this like this? It's all because of this one thing that I changed. And that's the message I'm trying to come across here. What's in that box of bullshit that you dug up after putting it back out there, it's yours. Inside of that thing, yes, it's BS, but it is a gift of BS because whatever you face in that box is going to change you. Now, it comes responsibility. You have to be disciplined about it. And that is always the hardest part. Can you keep it up? Or are you going to fall back again and put it back in the yard like I did? There was a thing that says, I think there was a quote someone said about going in circles with things like this. He said, don't try to think of it as circles. Think of it as a corkscrew. But you're going up. You're going to circle around, but you're not going around in circles. You're circling upwards. And eventually you'll get to the pin top, and there won't be anywhere else to circle. You've made it. But you're going to have fallbacks. Things are going to go wrong. That is the discipline part of it. And that is the part of it that I think when you're trying to unbox this stuff and face it, that's the scary part sometimes. It's like, oh, crap, now I got to commit to this. I've proclaimed that I'm not going to do this anymore. And then you're like, wait a minute. How do I do this? And I recommend this. How I got to this point was I wrote down every morning how I felt and what was making me stay in this dark cloud. And I noticed over time, I started that corkscrew. It's like going around a screw. I just kept on. I'm like, I'm getting closer and closer to pinpointing what this problem is. And I was determined. It was a focal point. I got that box out. I'm determined. And I found it. And that was half the battle. Now it's admitting you have a problem. It's admitting you are afraid of something, that whatever it is in your life that is bullshit, and you need to face it and make it a focal point that you've been kind of ignoring. Not kind of, you have been ignoring. Now you got to face it. Now you got to commit to it. And you have to put it on record for yourself. You have to tell people about it. And this is my record for it. Because now I'm held accountable. I can't go back. I know I made this saying I'm done with this certain thing. I cannot put it in a box anymore. It's done. It is done. And that mindset, that digging up the box of BS mindset, something I talked about 2 years ago, has finally come full circle for me in the most positive way possible. And I cannot express to you how much differently I feel knowing that this is just one of many boxes that I probably have to dig up. But we're all digging up boxes, things that we haven't forgot about. But one box, one room full of boxes, they all open up and lead to a better thing. We can't focus on all of it at once. They say anxiety is you looking too far in the future and trying to control things that haven't even come to pass yet. We can't look so far in the future and say, okay, well, what other box can I get? I came to this because it happened naturally. I didn't force it. I took my time, pinpointed the problem, and you start working on it immediately. And you own it. Ownership and accountability. So this podcast is not only to help whoever's listening, but it's also for me to come back. This is my podcast of ownership and responsibility and accountability for what I am and what I'm doing and what I just jettisoned from my life. And I know it's positive because everything has been happening so much better for me since this happened. And the people and the places and the things that have just popped up in a short amount of time gives me hope that, yes, I can keep this up, and this is going to be good for me, and not only for me, but for my son and my friends and my family and the people that I love. It opens up a whole new realm of possibility because other people can see you're in a better place. You're in a better spot. You're in a better position. You're on a much better track. You have to course correct. And the best thing about course correcting is that it's not a compass that we can just pick up and look at and say, hey, it says go that way, I'm going that way, and that's the only way. Doesn't work that way. I went through many tired nights over the last few weeks trying to pinpoint this, and it's been, like I said, a dark cloud over my head, and it hasn't been super bad. It was nothing that is just so bad where it's just gonna, I still was functioning. It's just something that was bothering me, something that needed to change so I have the clarity to put other things in my life, other people, places, and things in my life in much better focus. It lets me see them in a much better light, and you start to realize what you have and what you don't have. It's empowering. And you're grateful for the things that are aligned with you, and you're happy that other people, places, and things are no longer serving you. They're no longer part of your life. That's part of life. You have to move on, and you have to move on with the new opportunities you have through finding out who you are. And we can't do it if we're underneath a cloud of rain and thunder and we're ignoring our own BS. Gets you nowhere. So the whole point of facing this stuff is that it is time always to not only face this stuff, but be realistic about it and face it with the heroicism you would have with defending a family member. You should be doing that for yourself. You should be saving yourself far more you should be saving other people, because you can't save anyone else if you can't save yourself. If you're not aligned with yourself, you're not aligned with anyone else. If you're not aligned with yourself emotionally, no one can help you and show up for you emotionally. These are all things spiritually, physically, everything about you. If it's not good within you, then it's probably somewhere in one of those boxes, and maybe you need to go and dig them up. Salute to you all. The brave never fall.